Hello again, this is Oso, and welcome to Bees According to Oso. Basically, I'm doing this little tutorial here that'll be probably completely invalidated when we go to 1.7.10. But in the pack we have now, this is, I think, is a pretty good way to do it. Take from this what you can, throw away what you don't like, because there is no really right way to do bees. Any way that you do bees that works for you is the right way. But to get right into it, to actually get into bees, doesn't take a whole lot. First thing you'd need would be a bee house, scoop, find some hives, and get some bees. Bee house is really easy to make. You don't need any special equipment. Need 5 planks, a honeycomb of any type, and 3 slabs. And that's all you need to get a bee house. Okay, the scoop is really easy. Bring up the recipe for it here. If I can quit derping around. It's real simple. Any piece of wool, 5 sticks in that pattern, and you've got a scoop. Okay, so break your first hive here. Okay, and right there we got everything we need to make a bee house. Assuming you've got wood and you've got slabs and you got a single honeycomb out of that hive that we broke there, so you can make your bee house. And it's real simple. Just flop your princess and your drone in there, let them combine, and they start working. Now this bee house is it's got some good points and some bad points. Bad points: can't be automated and you can't use frames. So anything that you do with the bees in here has to be done manually. You can't, no mods automation will hook up to these things. Even if it looks like they're hooked up, they don't work. So you have to do this manually. The good part about it is that if you're doing some tree breeding, to crossbreed some trees to get a new species of tree, any bee that you put in here will take its pollination trait and multiply it by 3. So you'll be 3 times more likely to get a cross pollination on a tree than you should be able to based on just their trait. So that's a plus. If you're going to do bee breed, or if you're going to do tree breeding, you might want to consider using bee houses because not only do they multiply the pollination trait by 3, they also multiply the lifespan by 3. So even if you've got some short-lived bees, they get to live 3 times longer, and you don't always have to be coming back and flipping them back around and putting them back in. Now this queen that we have here started out as a princess, of course, and it's pristine stock. Pristines will work in any bee machine from just about any mod that deals with bees, and it won't die. Now there's another type called an ignoble stock. Now they will die eventually if you use them in any machine but these bee houses. The bee houses are really gentle on the bee, so even ignoble stock won't die in here. So, but if you're going to get into bees in a big way, you should probably have some infrastructure in place first. The main thing being is you're going to need some way to impregnate wood. And the reason you need to impregnate wood is that the second tier bee house, called the apiary, it requires impregnated casings in order to build. And if you use an alveary, not only do you need impregnated casings, you also need some other stuff as well. So anything above tier 1 on the bees is going to take some impregnated wood. And the reason you might want to have some infrastructure in place is because there's only 2 ways to impregnate wood in our packs. The first way is with seed oil. Seed oil is just that, comes from seeds. There's quite a few different seeds that you can get seed oil from. Probably the easiest would be the wheat seeds here, because wheat is super easy to automate, and it grows quickly, especially if you got something like a sprinkler or fertilizer in a forestry farm, MFR farm. Super easy to automate, which is good, because if you put seeds in a squeezer, you'll see that each cycle all you get is 5 millibuckets of seed oil. So it takes 200 seeds to make a single bucket of seed oil. But with the introduction of Ender IO into our pack, we get this thing called the sag mill, which really helps out with it. If you don't want a whole bunch of extra, now you can always use this wheat for whatever you want. But if you're worried about getting a surplus of wheat, you can dump this wheat into a sag mill, and for each stalk of wheat that it processes, it gives you two more grass seeds. So that's what I was saying when even though the amount of oil you get from seeds, wheat seeds is small, you can get a crap load of seeds really quick, and they process through the squeezer really easily. The second way to do it is we also have Railcraft installed. This is a coke oven. It's a multi-block structure, takes 26 coke oven bricks, which a coke oven brick is easy to make. Takes 5 sand, 4 bricks. You can make an entire coke oven with 130 pieces of sand and 104 pieces of clay, with the clay cooked into bricks. And what you can do is throw coal, logs, cactus, or sugar into the coke oven here, and what it'll do is it'll cook down and give you a piece of fuel here, the piece of fuel depends on what you throw in there, and some creosote oil. Now the creosote oil can be used in a carpenter the same as the seed oil to impregnate your casings and your sticks and such as that. Now of the two options right now, since we have Railcraft installed, probably the coke oven is the easiest, because you don't have to have a huge amount of infrastructure. Just build the coke oven, and as you need creosote oil, just shove in one of those 4 items that I showed you until you get the creosote amount that you need. 2 other things you might want to have either automated already or at least a supply of is wood. As you can see here, got a big redwood forest there, got a big jungle forest here, so I'm not going to bother with automating anything for these tutorials as far as wood goes, because I've got plenty. The second thing you'll need is quite a bit of string. Now, if you've got a mob farm going that has spiders and you got some sort of income on string, then you're good. I've got it set up here. I've got Pam's Harvest Craft cotton, and the reason I have that is because you can pick it, and it grows fairly quickly. For every 3 pieces of cotton that you put in here, you get 2 string. So earlier when we built the scoop, if you had this set up and you didn't have any wool, you could obviously make wool out of string. And string is also what is used heavily in frames. Every frame in the game starts with string and 4 sticks of some sort, and then you build them up from there. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about infrastructure. This is basically it, and you might want to start on it, have your infrastructure going before you ever start bees, so that it's there when you need it. Now, the types of bees that we're looking at here is there's 3 mods that add bees. The first one is forestry, second one is extra bees, and the third one is magic bees. And basically on forestry bees, there used to be a whole lot more forestry bees from what I understand, and over the life of the mod author, Sir Singer, has just pretty much culled it down to these. So we have the meadows, the forest, the modest, the tropical, marshy, wintry, and ender bees in forestry. Now, these 2 here, the forest and the meadow bee, are probably the 2 that you're going to run into first and use first, because they're just so common in the overworld. You'll probably see many more of them before you see any of these others. Mainly because they pretty much grow in the same biome. They generate in the same biome. Only difference is the meadows hive generates on the ground, and the forest hive, if you look right over there, you'll see one growing on the underneath of a leaf block. So basically, any biome that's not extreme, extremely cold or extremely hot, will have these 2 in them, because most biomes have trees of some sort. So you could almost consider these guys as the same bee as far as where you find them at. Next one we come to is the modest bee. It's found in desert and hot climates. We have BOP installed, which has quite a few desert type biomes, But I haven't had too much luck finding these bees in anything but the vanilla desert biome. Now they do show up in other ones, but it doesn't seem quite as much. So if you're looking for these things and you've got a vanilla desert biome close, that's probably where you should look for them. Same goes for the tropical. BOP adds quite a few tropical-like biomes, but I've only ever found these things in the vanilla jungle biome. Uh, Marshy biome, marshy bees all over the place. Any place that's got either a warm climate or a damp climate or a warm damp climate, these things will generate there. Wintry bees, look for snow. If there's snow on the ground, there's a wintry beehive around somewhere. Ender bees. These hives are, well, I won't say they're rare, but they are. They're limited. You find them in the end on top of the island, and there's only like 7 or 8 of them in the entire end, but they're real easy to find once you get there and kill the dragon. The next mod we got here is extra bees. It gives 3 types: rocky bees, water bees, and nether bees. Now the rocky bee, the rocky hive, is probably the most common hive in the game. Not because it is made that way, it's just the way that the world gens. All these things need to do to generate is stone around them. They need to be touching stone on one or more sides when they generate. You can find them on the floors of caves and the walls of caves. If you've got a bare patch of stone on the surface, you can find these things right there. And you can find them in the stone all the way to bedrock. And since so much stone generates in the game, these are by far the most common hive in the game, and probably one of the more difficult to find sometimes, because they do generate anywhere in stone. You might get lucky and find them, right when you start your mine or in a cave, or you might have to look quite a ways, do a lot of digging before you find them. But they're pretty common, so finding them isn't usually that difficult. Water hives, same thing. All it needs is water around it. If you've got water in a biome that can cover the top, cover this hive up to the very top, or even completely submerge it, you stand a chance of finding a water hive. Nether hive, same as the rocky hive, except in the nether. All it needs is netherrack around it to generate. The only thing is, this kind of like the tropical bee and the desert, the modest bee from forestry. I haven't had a whole lot of luck finding them in anything but the vanilla hell biome. With BOP installed, some of the ones like Undergarden and Boneyard, you have a tough time finding them in anything but the hell biome. But they do generate all over the place down there. These 3 bees are worth a mention: the valiant bee, the steadfast bee, and the monastic bee. The valiant bee has no hive of its own. It's found in other hives. Anytime you break one of these hives, you stand a chance of getting a valiant drone or a valiant princess instead of what you would expect to come out of it. Like you might break a rocky hive, and instead of getting a rocky princess and a rocky drone, you get a valiant princess and a rocky drone, or vice versa. A steadfast bee comes from loot chests. You won't find it anywhere else. So if you want to find this bee, that means you got to do some caving, find some dungeons, find some place that's got some loot chests, and hope that you come across one. The monastic bee comes from apiarist villagers. So you have to do a lot of looking in a lot of villages and find a lot of apiarists in the villages before you even find one guy that sells these things. And if you do find a guy that sells these things, it's to your advantage to buy every single one that he'll sell you. Next, we move up to the magic bees. Now, you can think of these as kind of like forestry bees, because the unusual bee here and the curious bee here are exactly identical to the meadows bee and the forest bee. They're found in the same biomes in the same places. This one's found on the ground. This one's found underneath leaf blocks. Resonating hive. If you're in a biome that you can find modest hives in, you'll also find these. The excuse me, the deep hives, kind of a special case. They're deep in deep down near bedrock, in hills, mountains, and magical biomes, with your best chance of finding them in a magical biome. Since they spawn surrounded by redstone, you have to go deep down to the redstone layer to find them. You'll never find any of these things on the surface or anywhere near it. And actually, the Infernal and the Oblivion Hive are the same way in the magic biome. In the overworld, if you're mining in a magic biome like Mystic Grove or Cherry Blossom Grove, uh, and you get down fairly deep, you'll run across like glowstone clusters or endstone clusters that shouldn't be in the overworld, but they are. Well, these are what's at the middle of them. The Infernal Hive is what's in the middle of the glowstone, and the Oblivion Hive is in the middle of the endstone. Plus, you can go to the Nether and the End and also find these things. The only thing is the Oblivion Hive, instead of being on top of the island, is underneath the island on top of obsidian pillars. So that pretty much covers the hive bee species that serve as a base for all the other bees that you're going to want to breed. Now, the final thing that you might want to, you won't need this right off the bat because you won't have the honey drops to run it, but you might want to go ahead and make yourself a beealyzer. It takes 4 tin ingots, 2 panes, diamond, and 2 pieces of redstone, and a carpenter with 2 buckets of water. And you get the beealyzer. You can't use it right away, like I said, but you will end up needing one, so I guess you might as well build it sooner than later. So anyhow, I'm trying to keep these things short to keep people from getting too bored. So I think I'm going to go ahead and end this here. And when I do the next one, what I'll do is I guess it would be called the hard way. The way that bees were bred when just forestry had bees before the advent of extra bees and magic bees. So I'll pick it up there when I come back. I'll talk to y'all later. Goodbye.